Okay, y'all, welcome to the podcast. This one I am so excited to record. Do you want to know why? You probably do, because if you are listening to this in real time, today is the last episode of 2023. How insane is that? I literally sat down to record this podcast right now, and I've been actually thinking about it for the last couple of days because how fun is the end of the year podcast? Like, I'm going to do all the fun things, recap the year, lessons of 2023. It's just going to be so good, but I cannot believe it's the end of 2023. Like, holy moly. You know, I think I've said this on this podcast before, or maybe it's my social media or whatever, but like, do you feel like that thing that your parents used to tell you? Because my dad always used to say, Chris, my parents call me Chris, life goes so fast when you're old. And I'm like, you know, when you're young, you're just like, whatever. But oh my God, I know I'm not that old, but like, holy moly, 2023 was the fastest year ever. It is over in a blink of a bloody eye. I am recording this the last week of November. Thanksgiving is here, but for you who are listening to this in live time, it's literally Christmas is past, New Year's is coming. The New Year is like literally coming next bloody week. And it's like the most trippiest thing on the planet. Like, I'm hoping this next month of my life, there's nothing really important that I had to include on this podcast. But if there is, well, I'll make sure Kevin cuts it in here. But if not, I wanted to use today's podcast to recap 2023. It has been a good year, some highs, some lows, overall, a really exceptional year. And I know that this podcast is probably not going to resonate with every single person. But before you cut off, I promise, I think you should really listen to today's episode and perhaps even share it with someone who needs to hear it. And perhaps if it's something that is just like hit you to your core, maybe as your New Year's resolution, you can say that the New Year's resolution is going to be to send me a text message or at least connect with me on Instagram or an email. Or if you're watching this over on YouTube, please watch this over on YouTube. I don't know if you can tell, but my hair is like 5 days greasy because tomorrow I have a hair appointment. All of you ladies know hair day is the most important day. But all of that to be said, send me a comment. Leave a comment here on YouTube. Text me 501-222-3362. Tell me if you've got anything from today's podcast. But today's podcast is not only going to be a personal recap, it's not only going to be a client recap, but I think my team will probably name it like lessons of 2023 or year-long lessons or whatever it may be, because I really this is going to be fun. I am going to start the podcast. I actually have notes for those of you who are over on YouTube. You can see that this is chicken scratch. You know, for all of my clients who may or may not listen to this podcast, if I ever send you a handwritten note, and I think I've said this before, but if I ever send you a handwritten note, no, I don't hate you. It's just that my penmanship is so bad. So if you're watching this over on YouTube, you can tell it is like I should have been a doctor because it is that bad. Sometimes I can't even read it. So fingers crossed today I can. But I wanted to start the podcast with kind of like giving you, and I'm saying like too much. Gosh, you'd think that after 3 years of a podcast or 4 or whatever it's been, no, it's only been 3. You'd think that I would be able to not use but I am using that and like a little too much so far. But if you're new here, welcome. This is the crazy shit show you get each and every single week, but some of you tend to listen to it because we get like 1,000 downloads a week, which for all of you who are my loyal listeners, like you literally do not understand unless you're one of my friends and you know me in real life. What is that? IRL? People say that all the time. But anyway, you probably know that like truly from the bottom of my soul, I know people say this and you're like, why should I trust you? I don't fucking know you. You're just a person on the internet. But like, if you are one of my girlfriends, if you are one of my friends, and I have a lot of guy friends too, but if you are one of my friends, you know, like this is literally so important to me. And I'm so eternally grateful for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I've made it 1 more year doing this podcast, and hopefully, fingers crossed, God willing, there's going to be plenty more years to come. But stick around for next week's podcast because we'll talk about 2024. Can you believe next week is going to be 2024? Insanity. But that podcast is going to be good as well. But today's podcast is all about the lessons of 2023. And so what I'm going to do, and hopefully you enjoy this and hopefully it goes well because, you know, this is me recording this live. I'm going to give you my 8 lessons. I have 8 lessons that this past year has either kind of ingrained in me even more, or I've learned them throughout this past year. I'm going to give you the 8 lessons that I really feel like, and maybe I'm forgetting some, but these are the ones that were my mind over the last couple of days thinking about this podcast and really recapping, because I, again, have pages and pages of notes today. But I'm going to give you the lessons, and then I'm going to tell you all the things that have happened personally and professionally this year. And then I'll end with the lessons again. And I'll try to like point back to the lessons and all of the things that have happened and how they correlate with the lessons. So here we go. These are my lessons, and tell me if these resonate with you. I'd love to know, or if you have others, but these are the ones that have just like literally hit me in my core this year. So lesson number one of 2023 is, and gosh, I kind of want to go lesson and then give you all the examples, but I'll give you the examples after, because you guys know me. I'm like a squirrel. I'm all over the place. I don't have ADD, but I do believe that sometimes when I do this podcast, it kind of seems like I do. But lesson number one, trust yourself and trust your gut. Trust yourself and trust your gut. I'm going to give you guys examples over this past year, but these are the lessons first. Number 2, if you love doing something, you can always, and I know people want to fight me on this, always figure out a way to make money and do it full time. It may take time and effort, but it is always possible. That was lesson number 2. Number 3, I will never, and this is emotional, I will never regret time. I will never regret time with humans I care about. I will never regret taking time for things that I love and people that I love. Number 4, money. This is triggering to some, I know it. This is triggering to you. We probably should work together, because I promise you this is true. Money does not make you happy. Money does not make you fulfilled. What money gives you is choices. Number 5, relationships are a must, and your reputation is everything. Number 6, expect unexpected blessings. Number 7, don't wait to live life. Number 8, oh my God, I can't read my writing. Fuck, are you serious? I literally can't read this. Oh, that's what it says. I'm like, oh my God, what did I say? I just wrote this a few hours ago. Number 8. See, number 7 was so intense. It was so good. Don't wait to live life. And then there's this long pause. And I'm hoping my audio guy doesn't take it out, because that long pause is really me not being able to read my writing. Number 8, the tiniest shifts can make the biggest difference. So that was number 8. I'm going to read these again at the end of the podcast, but I'm going to now go into a recap of all that was 2023. I'm going to talk about the professional. I'm going to talk about the personal. I'm going to use mostly personal examples, because I don't know why. Tell me if this feels true to you guys. My coach over the years is not really she's changing a little bit lately, but she's not really shared a lot of personal. I kind of lean to the other side, and I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I was actually having this conversation with a couple of clients the other day, of how sometimes I think I maybe do it wrong. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, you did not see my air quotes on YouTube. I sometimes think I do it wrong, in the fact that I blur the lines between clients and friendships oftentimes. I don't know if that's right or wrong or indifferent, but going back to lesson number 1 on my list is, I'm going to trust myself and trust my gut. You know, I do believe that sometimes when you blur those lines, perhaps a client no longer wants to be a client, or they want to be more of a friend, or you could hurt the friendship, or whatever it be. But I feel like I've done a really, really good job of this, because I just ultimately, if I keep the number 1 goal in my head of I just want to serve a human being, whether that be a client or a friend, I feel like I can do a really good job of that. So Anyway, all of that to be said, that was kind of a side tangent about the personal, but I am going to share some personal stuff about this past year. I am going to share the professional stuff. So kind of taking it back to early 2023. And again, all of these things that I'm going to talk about that have happened over the last year of this business and this life of mine, my 41 years of life. Well, I was 40 for most of it, 41 for now of it. And you guys are so funny too. I'm so grateful for my community because so many people like think it's my birthday on a certain day. I don't really usually share like my actual birthday. I share like if you watch me over on Instagram, I did a recap of my 40th birthday trip last year because last year I really intentionally tried to get off Instagram when my birthday trip was happening. And it's funny, I actually left for that trip after my birthday even happened. So many people are super confused on my birthday, but my birthday's in October, whatever. I'm not really a birthday person. 40th was a big one. When we're 50, I'll celebrate. Speaking of, Nathan turns 50 next year. Oh my God. Stay tuned for 2024. It's going to be good. Anyway, let's start with the personal. So going back to all of those lessons, those 8 lessons, personally, there's a lot of big things that happened in 2023. No, sorry. Let's start with professional. Let's save the juicy part for a second. But no, the professional part is really what I think most of you want to actually hear anyway, because a lot of you are entrepreneurs, a lot of you are small business owners, a lot of you are executives, a lot of you are people who are just trying to better yourselves, both personally and professionally, mindset and strategy, because that's who I talk to all day long. That's what I love. So professionally, what happened in 2023? Well, the biggest change in 2023 was going back to my number one lesson was trusting myself. So in 2023, I officially quit doing group coaching. So for 6 years, I did masterminds. And in 2023, those came to an end. And I know online you may have just seen that like, okay, I'm ending that and I'm starting one-on-one. But if you talk to my coach, Lacey, you will know there was so many tears. There was so much like, not worry about it because again, I trusted my gut and I knew what I needed to do, but it was also like ending of something. It was like ending of an era. It was like, what are people going to think? Like, it's not that they weren't working. It was just, I didn't see them working for me anymore. Masterminds are still amazing. And so for those of you who aren't like super clear on the difference between a mastermind and one-on-one coaching is mastermind is I've always defined it as a like-minded group of people coming together to accelerate growth. So it's very much about like the community. It's very much about sharing the ideas. One-on-one is very much like me and you, business and life, like me very much concentrating just on you and not as the collective and sharing the collective. And so for me, transitioning between masterminds and one-on-one to just one-on-one was a very hard decision due to the fact that like, what were people going to say? And like, that was a huge piece of my revenue. For years, I did, multi 6 figures in a mastermind container. And for me, leaving that on the table and thinking, gosh, what if this one-on-one doesn't work the way that I want it to, was a very big risk, but I had to trust myself and I knew it was time. I knew it's what people wanted and I knew it was what I was best at. And I'll be honest, the industry tells you what I am doing is wrong and what I am doing may be wrong business-wise. You guys take me out of the equation. I don't really have a business. And that's a very, big thing to swallow. But I will also say that I think the thing that a lot of people don't talk about is the money that I earn in this business, I can put and use for other things in life. I also have other ways that I bring in income. I've sat on a state board for 13 years. We have rental properties. I still do golf events here and there. Like there's other streams of income coming in. And so I don't talk about those things a ton, but I will say like, this is my passion. This is what I'm supposed to be doing on the planet. This is what helps people the most. And for me not to do it just because it may not be the best stream of revenue or like a one-on-one time for money situation. I fucking hate that, by the way. Everyone's like mailbox money and all the things. Like every single thing takes time, effort, and energy before you start it up. Like there isn't one fucking person who owns a rental property in the world that hasn't spent time, energy, effort, money to get that going and to keep maintaining that. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but I also know like this business, my LLC, my company will never be sold for anything because there is nothing in it. I am the something. And so, that is a risk reward I'm willing to take. And I truly do believe I can do this job for another 10, 15 years easily, if not longer. I mean, I probably get better with age, maybe not better looking. I mean, like, let's be honest, this lighting in here is fucking horrible today. But all of that to be said is I can do this for a very long period of time. And I only see it actually getting better, not worse. And especially with, the bringing on of AI, a lot of people are talking about how AI is really going to affect industry. I actually feel like my industry, it's the best thing that could have ever fucking happened because there is not a single AI tool on the planet that can oh my God, what am I trying to say? Replicate the human connection experience. There is not a single AI tool out there that can have that human to human connection that I can provide for my clients. We can use an AI tool to come up with a better strategy, but really feeling that connection with my client and really getting clear on what they actually want. There's not an AI tool out there, and probably not till I'm dead, that can why can't I say that word today? Replicate that. Gosh, crazy. I don't know why I can't say that word. That's not even a fucking hard word. Jeez Louise. Anyway, all of that to be said, that was like by far the biggest thing in my business in 2023 was going exclusively to a one-on-one business formula. And it's something that I'm so fucking grateful that I did. And side note, I do want to point out, because this was something that I think a lot of people are curious about. A lot of people are curious about numbers in my industry and my business. What is normal? What is not? I have promised many people, I'm going to have a sip of water. Holy cow. I have promised people a podcast on numbers, and I will do it. I promise you in 2024, I will do a podcast on like the actual numbers in this business, because I feel like there's a lot of like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors about what actually happens. And like people talk about these big numbers, and again, it's not all profit. I think people really need to, and if you're someone who's listening to this, who's saying like, oh my God, duh, you should know the difference between gross and net. Guess what? Some people don't. And I want to make you feel so seen in the fact that like, you do need to know that a lot of the people who are showing these crazy numbers on social media, that is their fucking gross revenue, not what they're putting in their pocket. And I have a very, very lean team. Well, I could definitely do it leaner for sure. There's no doubt about it. Like I could definitely do everything myself and not have help and pay people to do all the things. But even still, like I probably have a 60% profit margin. So if you're thinking about, and I'm about to tell you, my revenue in 2023 compared to 2022, as of December 1st, let's just say that, is down about 8%, 7 or 8%. And that actually isn't bad, knowing that I went from a group program, so a lot more clients, to a lot less clients. And let me tell you, I do not regret it at all. I am so fucking grateful that I am now able to help clients the way that I am. I'm so grateful that I have given myself more space. I don't work a ton of nights anymore. I only work one night a week. I have the flexibility to play golf once or twice in the summers per week. Like, do not regret a dime. And 7%, I mean, fuck, I can get that money back easily by, bringing in as income in a different way. But just so you know, I only went down 7%. And I actually see that number, like I actually see my revenue going up in 2024. And here's the reason why. I have had a lot of clients who I have grandfathered into my old pricing, and just over the years, it just happens. It's nothing bad is happening, but I've had a couple of clients at my very old pricing leaving after 3 or 4 or 5 years with me. And that new price point is now come in I've had the exact same price for the last couple of years, but people who've been with me longer than 2 years have had an older price point. So my revenue could actually go back to what it was with group coaching and probably even excel after that. Because if I add in 1 or 2 more things, a couple more VIP days or a couple of more intensive sessions, I can bring that revenue back to what it was. And so, bringing in $300,000 or $400,000 a year really isn't bad income, guys, for getting to do something that I love and serving humans that I absolutely love and can help them make way more money. And let me be very, very clear. Not all of my clients are with me for business. I always say it's business and personal mindset and strategy. I do believe that I am a bit of a unicorn in the fact that I can, work with people who are doing multi-seven figures and help them with their personal. I have been very lucky to say that I have a background that allows me to be able to do both extremely well. And so I'm so grateful for that. So there it is. There's the money. There's the behind the curtains real life scenario. I'm only down 7% and I'm so fucking grateful for what I get to do. So I started my membership subscription coaching this year. So clients can now work with me 1 call per month. It's a 12-month commitment. You guys, what that does for my clients and my business makes it so much fucking easier because I'm sold out most months, which is such a blessing. People love it and I love it. It's a fucking win-win-win-win situation. So 2023, trusting my gut to do the membership coaching and the mastermind, only do one-on-one coaching. Oh my gosh, what a fucking win. What else? I stopped working full time with my coach, Lacey. So now I just work with her quarterly. I'll tell you, that was the hardest. It was the hardest thing. I still have like a 4 or 5 minute voice note when I ended with her bawling. She was crying, all of the things, but still almost 1 year later, I'm still working with her. I haven't changed to a different coach. I haven't done anything different when it comes to that. I just know that my business model is very, very similar. But I will say that I think something to point out that so many people, and I have found this to be true, that so many people stop using coaching support because they believe that they should have it figured out. I will say what I did was no longer work with Lacey full time because Lacey is very much a business coach. And Lacey also does take 10% of your revenue. So what I decided to do, because I believe in forever support, what I did was I then hired my therapist full time because I need more in this season of my life and in things that are going on behind the scenes that I don't really share personally. I share 80% of my life on this and Instagram and all the things, but I needed some more therapy support. So I just transitioned the support. I have seen this time and time again, and it makes me sad because most people believe they're going to get to this point where they don't need support any longer. My question to you is why? Why would you not continue to have something that makes your life better, easier, faster, like more supported? Like, do not believe that you should be able to do this yourself. Time and time again, you will hear people always say, I'm ready to do it by myself. I'm ready to handle this by myself. And my question to you is like, why? Why do you feel like you need to do that? Like, in my personal opinion, you can have support forever. I literally always want support. I want people helping me. We are not supposed to do life alone. And I can assure you, I can't use my husband, even though my husband is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I can't use my husband for all the things. He should not be used for all the things. I want support in all different areas: business support, therapy support, household support, whatever it is, friend support, relationship support. So do not believe that you have to do things yourself. If you're one of those people who are like, I'm going to try to do this by myself, please, for the love of God, there's no rule book saying that you have to do it by yourself, and you should be able to do it by yourself. If it makes your life better, stick it out forever. Why not? Fuck, it makes it better, right? So, Another thing that happened in 2023 that was sad. Well, Lacey was sad. Leaving Lacey full time was sad, but the one of the saddest things, but I also got a benefit out of it, was my full-time assistant who I have loved for years. She was with me almost 3 years. She decided to take a full-time position. We're still good friends. She actually still does this podcast, and I love and adore her so much. I'm so grateful that she was in my life. She is like a unicorn. She went and took a full-time position that was very much in alignment to her. And I did bring on my new assistant, Jess, who is just as amazing. But, working with someone for 3 years in such an intimate way, you get to love them. And I'm so grateful that I literally loved my assistant. So that changed in 2023. In 2023, two of my absolute favorite clients moved on in different capacities to one left for a different coach because that coach was much more in alignment for her for what she was doing in her business. And another one just needed a different type of support. And so I won't, mention if it's therapy or all the things, but I'm so grateful for the time that I got with those people. And it's always hard. It's hard if you are a coach out there, or you are someone who works in a capacity where you're working one-on-one with someone. Just so you know, I just want you to feel seen. It's hard when someone leaves because you just kind of think, gosh, is there anything that I could have done differently? But I also know that there's not. And I think one of the coolest things about me is the fact that I have stayed really friends with a lot of people. Not everyone by far. There's a lot of people that I don't talk to anymore that I used to work with. But I will say that I have stayed in connection with a lot of people who meant a lot to me and that were great clients. So that changed, which was kind of crazy and sad and all the good things when those people left and did different things. But I will say I brought on so many new clients this year and it has been so fun. And I will say one of the things professionally, I'm going to tap into this, but one of the things professionally goes back to one of the lessons this year is that you never know what is going to happen. Expect the unexpected blessings. I will say one of the craziest things that had happened to me in January, and probably some of you are listening to this podcast, was the podcast I did with Clinton Anderson. Crazy to think that, how I am connected with a few people now. I've brought on some clients who have found me through that podcast, but it is one of the craziest things ever to think that a person from the other side of the world in a completely different industry who he knew nothing about me and I knew nothing about him, how that ended up being just a huge unexpected blessing, I think, to the both of us in regards, like he had this huge blessing by him, being on this podcast that blew up. We had a few, I think by this time is probably close to 100,000 downloads. Like I think we had 25,000 downloads in the first week on that podcast, but his went to like 1 million downloads right off the bat. So it's one of those unexpected blessings that you both are just kind of like, how the hell did that happen? So that was a huge thing that happened in 2023 business wise. It was so cool. And it's also amazing how I'm so now connected with like this horse agricultural world. It's so crazy. I have a couple clients now that I work with that have come to me through the Clinton Anderson podcast. And it's so crazy how that whole thing happened. So expect unexpected blessings. I would never in my wildest dreams believe that would have happened. So a couple of things that happened that were like not so great was I was literally catfished by a client. And like I use the word catfish. I don't even remember like how that word kind of comes up in my brain of why I'm calling it that. But like this person literally pulled the wool over my eyes. And it was the first time it's ever kind of happened. And I won't dive into it, but it was fucking crazy town of how this happened. And I will say, trusting your gut, my number one lesson. I don't know if I didn't trust my gut on that situation. I know that it kind of seemed, I don't want to say almost too good to be true, but it was like, I talked to this person, she signed, and then all of a sudden just weird shit was starting to happen. And yeah, it was a crazy, crazy type of situation. So that was a kind of a shitty thing that happened in 2023. I think I handled it as best as I could, but I will be honest with you, behind the scenes, I was fucking pissed. I was sad. I was emotional. I was all of the feelings that you can possibly imagine. And obviously like lost a ton of money, sent that person to collections. That person like literally doesn't even exist. Like it is a weird situation. And that person is currently still online, which is very unfortunate, talking about things that she probably shouldn't be talking about. And it is bizarre. There is bad people out there. And I don't know if this person is bad per se. I think that this person is just really screwed up, and it is very unfortunate. But I am blocked on all of the ways, which I'm sure I'm not the only one. But, I hate to be associated with that, because one of the lessons that I say there is your relationships are the most important, and your integrity and your reputation matter the most. And God forbid, my reputation could have ever been, taken advantage of by this person, because I was taken advantage of. I would have never worked with a person like that ever. There's not a amount of money on the planet that would have made me work with that person had I known the real side of it. So that was really fucked up. First time I ever had to send a client to collections. I probably should have sent another one, which was very unfortunate. Let's talk about some good things that happened professionally. I had 7 clients cross the 7-figure mark this year. How fucking crazy town is that? So amazing. So 7 of my clients are doing over 7 figures, which is awesome and amazing. One of them is close. One of them is like 800 and something thousand. So I do want to point that out, but I mean, my God, it's close enough. Like, it's close enough, and it's so brilliant, and I'm so proud, and I'm just so honored. And again, I don't only work with people for business, but I do want to shout out the people that I am working with that are doing that, because when you are an entrepreneur and you're a small business owner, or you are someone who has started something from scratch and you have been able to do that, I tell everyone you have to celebrate. Whether it's your first $1,000 or your first $100,000 or your first 500,000 or your first million, whatever it is, if you don't celebrate the smallest things, I promise you're going to get to $1 million and you're not going to celebrate it. And truth be told, I promise you, a lot of my clients who did literally don't celebrate it. And so you have to, like, I literally pull back the curtain and just say, are you fucking kidding me? Even today, I had a client who was like, yeah, we did like 1.3. And I'm like, whoa, you have to celebrate this. You must. Do you know how insane that is? It's insane. It's so amazing. And again, guys, this is gross, not net. Just so you know, it's not like people are bringing home. Like, I love how people think that, my husband and I are just like, oh, you must make like $5-10 million a year or whatever the fuck. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, do you have any concept of what this actually is? But I do think that that's very important, because I think a lot of people will want you to believe that they're bringing home this amount of money. There is very few people around you that are probably bringing actual net income of $5+ million. Very, very, very few. It's very, very minute. I'm sure you can Google stat that. Use ChatGPT. I have had 3 clients that have upped their revenue by over 50% this last year. Again, a stat that's fucking amazing. I went down 7%, but I've had a few clients that have gone up in 50%. This past year was the first time I've ever had to let a client out of a contract. And I actually did a video on it on Instagram. I've always tried to be very transparent. We ended on good terms, but it just wasn't what this person wanted. And, I've been doing this 6 years, and it was the first time I've had to do it. So I feel very fortunate that it was the first time, but it also makes you feel shitty professionally. It makes you feel shitty. It makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. And I take what I do extremely serious, and I care so deeply about my clients. And so when this situation happened, it was hard. It was a hard conversation, but I will tell you, I think, I've done another podcast. If you guys go back probably 5 or 10 podcasts ago, it was a solo podcast where I talked about the hard lessons. And I talked about this, like, I am never going to tell you it's all fucking 7 figures and 50% increases in revenue. I'm going to tell you that there has been so many hard moments. And, the moments that I wish I could articulate so much better are not the financial ones. The wins and the hard moments that my clients have on the personal side are, honest to God, what the actual real wins are. But most people don't want to hear that, because most people want to know what the ROI on a coaching relationship is going to be. But I will tell you, going back to the very last lesson, was the smallest shifts can make the biggest difference. Those are the people that are having life-changing coaching relationships, is the the people who are making the smallest shifts, the people who are doing the real work. I wish I could, make you feel like a woman who doesn't feel as overwhelmed at work was just as important as doing seven figures. A woman who is figuring out how to, not feel that mom guilt is just as important as seven figures. A person who is taking care of their health and learning forgiveness and putting her relationships first and learning to take a month off and learning how to regulate her nervous system and learning how, her parents have wounded her so deeply. And, guys feeling so overwhelmed or angry or been motivated by, that next level and learning that that's not the healthiest way to go. I wish I could articulate those wins in a way in which you go, fuck, that is worth every dime. But most people want to hear, oh, you hit seven figures and your revenue went up 50%. So, I wish I could tell you that that's the most important stuff. And it is like money, going back to like, money does not make you happy and it does not make you fulfilled. It just gives you more choices. So, it is what it is, but that is one of the lessons there. One of the cool things that we did this year was, if you have not been to my website, you can find the website in my show notes. Please go look at it because I spent a fucking fortune redoing it for the first time in 2023. So I will tell you, I built my website near the beginning of my business back in 2017. And it was average at best. I had a little cheesy video on there for a very long period of time. And this past year, we redid the copy, we redid the website. And I will tell you, I think that it's smart that I waited 6 years into business to do that, because creating a website right off the bat is probably the worst thing to do. Because had I really spent, I think we spent $8,000 or $9,000 redoing the website. And had I spent that in the beginning of my business, A, I didn't have the money to do it. And B, it would have probably needed to be upgraded again this year, because now we have only 3 ways to work with me. My one-on-one coaching full-time, my coaching membership, and my intensive session, get in, get out. So that obviously I have my, VIP days and stuff like that you can spend in-person time with me, where my clients usually clients are the ones who take me up on those in-person days. But so we updated the website this year. That was kind of cool. I also wrote down the fact that my revenue was down 7%. So this podcast was so good this past year. I literally am so grateful for the guests that we have on this podcast this year. Started out the year like just blowing it out of the water with that Clinton Anderson podcast that, had a ton of downloads. That was a 2-part. If you guys didn't hear that, it was a 2-part last January. We put that out with Clinton. Clinton put it out on his podcast, the Uncut Real Raw podcast, who that podcast blows my podcast out of the water in the amount of downloads for sure. I'm so grateful. I had a couple of my best friends on the podcast this past year. Leah Thorvaldsen, I call her my 10-time Olympic gold medalist best friend, but she tells me that they're not Olympic gold medalists. They're just like Little Rock Marathon, whatever, same difference. I had her on the podcast. I had a woman who reached out to me on the podcast. I was like unbelievably grateful. Like, how freaking cool is that, I had someone just watch this YouTube and say, oh my gosh, I've listened to every single solitary one of your podcasts and I've never reached out to you. So that was so fucking cool. I had a couple of women who I just think were so amazing this past year. A couple of my favorites that have stuck out. So they were all good. The fact that I had Bozeman St. John on the podcast, that was a huge, big one for me. I was a little bit starstruck. If you didn't hear that one, go check it out. Her book was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so grateful that I got to speak to Natasha from Trader Joe's List. She was cool as shit. And then I got to speak to her sister, Talia, who owns All Seated in the Barn. And I'll tell you, though, Talia may be the person that has been the absolute most passionate about her occupation in my life. And that one really stuck. I hope she knows that, that one really stuck out to me. Another one that stuck out to me, if you guys did not hear it, was Tiffany, the Pink Crumb Baker. She really stuck out to me because she's a little bit older and her business has exploded and she's just so passionate about what she does. Oh my gosh, that was such a good one. Rob Murgatroyd's podcast, I think that was one of the greatest ones. It really hit home for myself in particular, and a ton of you. I know it did, about truly choosing a life that you want to lead instead of one that you think you're supposed to be leading. And then, obviously so grateful that Damon West, the Coffee Bean author, was on the podcast. That was a huge win for me. So the two people I've always said that I wanted on this podcast, which I do believe I've had a bit of a shift now on who I think I've wanted a guest on this podcast. I've always wanted Mel Robbins and Danica Patrick, and I still truly do believe that it might not be this year, it might not be next year, but within the next 5 to 10 years of doing this podcast, I think that I have the ability to make enough connections to be able to make those happen. And if I don't, they're not meant to be. And I feel really at peace with that. You guys, coming up in January, we have what I believe could have been my absolute favorite podcast recording of all time. So be sure to check that out. I have another woman that I really connected with coming out in January. It was so good too. Next week on the podcast, I'm going to be doing my 2024, what I think about New Year's resolutions. So if you're new here, you're going to want to check that out because I have a strong opinion. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? So before we end, I really want to talk about the personal. And I think you guys are probably really interested in the personal and how those relate back to my life lessons. So the personal stuff. 41. I turned 41. 40 was a big year. Checked a lot of things off the bucket list. 41 was really about, and I'm probably not going to go into a lot of it, but 41 was really about celebrating. This past 2023 was really about supporting my husband on the back end. You guys know, if you follow me on Instagram over at Christina, you know that my husband's literally, it's God and my husband. My clients are third, but my husband is the most important person on the planet to me. And this year was really about supporting him. And I've said this to him a couple times, and I don't want him to take it wrong. Because he's always been my number one supporter. And he's like, what do you mean this year is about supporting me? But, I will point this out. This is a character flaw of mine. I will 100% say I'm getting better at it, but I am a selfish person. Some of you would probably know that. Some of you probably don't, but I am selfless in a lot of ways, but I'm also selfish in some ways. And I think that I have been selfish with a few things in my life. And this past year, it was really just about how can I make my husband feel so supported in a few big decisions that he has coming. So that's really what 2023 was. And it's probably going to be what 2024 is. Oh, and 2024, my husband turns 50. Stay fucking tuned, because you guys, going back to life lesson number 7, don't wait to live life. You should see what I'm doing for his 50th birthday. You are not going to want to miss it. You thought my 40th birthday present was good. Stay tuned. So personal stuff, really a lot more therapy. There's a lot of personal stuff that I'm always, one of the things that I think that makes me a really good coach is that I am constantly trying to learn. I can learn something from every single person. It can be a person on the street, or it can be a person I pay $100,000 to go and learn from. It literally does not matter. I can always learn something. And I truly believe God is just blessing me in my life, because if I always keep the focus on how can I be a blessing to another human, whether that be one of my clients or someone on the street, I always believe that I am getting things in order to serve other people. And it's so crazy. Sometimes I'll learn something and 2 calls later, it's oh, that's exactly why I needed to learn that in order to serve this person. But for myself personally, with therapy, I've been diving into that a lot more. There's a lot of things that I'm constantly working on. I am not perfect. I am a constant evolution. I don't have to be perfect in order to help my clients. I just have to help them in the best way that I know how. And, for me personally, just really diving into therapy this year was big. Supporting Nathan, that was a big thing. Living life fully. If you follow me at all, when I die, there isn't one person who's going to be able to say that I didn't fucking live life. And I'm so proud of that. I am so proud of that. I say yes to all the fun things. I do everything that I want to be doing in this world because I know life is short. It could be taken away from me. God, I hope not anytime soon, because my number one fear, and honestly, if I'm being a little bit even more vulnerable than I normally am, that is something I talk about my therapist with, because I have a fear of running out of time. Like I love my life so much that one of my big kind of fears or worries is I don't want it to be taken away. I literally don't. And coming from a woman who, if you guys knew my story from when I was 27 or younger, to think that now my biggest fear and worry is running out of time, it is just proof of 180 that you can make in your life. This year, our whole year was, we didn't do any long trips. We went to Mexico for Christmas, but our trips this year, we travel a lot. We really like to make an experience of life. I think that is something that is so, so important to both of us. We are not materialistic people, but we are creating memories people. Like, I like to do memories over things for sure. We went to so many sporting events. We went to so many concerts. We went to long weekends. We went for hikes. We were all over the place. Like, I literally listed out, I tried to name them all and guaranteed I missed them. This year we went to Vegas 3 times, Phoenix, Canada, Cancun, Texas, like God only knows, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, Dallas, Austin. That's Austin. We went to Austin and Dallas, God, however many times. Our absolute favorite trip this year was Colorado, which we never would have thought. We went to Colorado. And if you ask Nathan, I mean, we've been to Africa, Maldives, Australia, Thailand, Singapore, whatever, you can name it. We've been there. And my husband's like, Colorado for the long weekend was my favorite trip. I was like, oh my God. Well, we could have saved tons of time and money by just going to Colorado, but we enjoyed that trip so much. We just like literally rented a car, stayed in like these little, they were definitely not bougie hotels by any means, just did some awesome hikes, made sandwiches in the car. It was like a really amazing long weekend trip. So we went to Nashville. I saw one of my mastermind girls. So as some of you may or may not know, I have been in a mastermind for over 2 years now with 2 of my girlfriends. One of them lives in Mexico. One of them lives in Australia. And my Australia mastermind girlfriend, she came to America. We met her and her beautiful husband in Nashville, had so much fun, so grateful. Saw a couple of my clients over there, Madison Hughes, who's right now, she is totally like trending on all the social media platforms. It's crazy to watch her growth and her success. Like, I am just like, I think it's what it feels like to be a mom. I've never been a mom, never will be a mom, but I'm just like cheering her on. I'm so, so proud of her. Madison, saw my girlfriend, Sarah. Our concerts this year, just in case you guys are curious, my top 3 concerts this year were, I never would have expected it. Ashley McBride has one of the greatest voices. Oh my gosh. But we saw everyone this year from like Keith Urban. We're big country people. Keith Urban, Chris Stapleton, Lainey Wilson, Ashley McBride. We saw Alabama, Dierks Bentley, Luke Bryant, he was sick. Eric Church was sick. It was so weird that those people were sick for a couple of concerts. Gosh, who else did we see? The one person I didn't see this year was Adele, because I wasn't sure that I wanted to spend $2,000 a ticket. And I literally didn't want to see the 2 biggest concerts of the year, which was Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I had zero desire to see both of them. But the Ashley McBride concert, believe it or not, best voice that I've seen probably in my life besides Celine Dion, which is a funny thing. Went camping. And let me tell you, probably the first and the last, I am not a camper. And by the way, it wasn't even camping in a tent. It was camping in an old cabin, just not for me. Call me bougie if you want, but I like a nice hotel, big soft sheets, and not water that stinks. I don't like floating the buffalo. It was pretty, got some good video, but I won't be doing it again. So whatever. I know a lot of people love camping. I'm just not a camper. It's just not for me. Love a good hike, but not a camping. One of the greatest things personally I did this year, and it's a memory that I'll never forget, is my dad came down for a long weekend by himself without my mom. It's the first time I've ever, this is not a slam against my mom, but it's the first time in my whole entire life I have spent time with my dad without my mom. And I've always said I wanted my dad to get on the lake. And my dad's childhood wasn't amazing by every stretch of the imagination. but he's never had a summer because my dad's always been in the golf industry. And when he was growing up, they had $0. And he's never been on a boat, never been on the lake in the summer, never been to a Cowboys game, never did any of that. And so my dad came down for a long weekend, and it's one of my greatest memories. I will tell you that for sure, to be able to see my dad out on the lake and for my dad to just have so much fun and be spoiled. And we flew over to the Cowboys game and had the most amazing day with my dad and my father-in-law and Nathan and I. And it was just like the most perfect weekend on the planet. And that goes back to the life lesson number 7, which is don't wait to live life. It can be so great. Just don't wait. Don't wait to do all the things. I think the biggest robbery that we've been taught in this life is wait until you retire to do all the things. Well, fuck, a lot of people can't do it. And so make the time, figure it out, live life now. That is not a regret I will ever have. I did so many charity events for golf this year. I had a few girls' nights. I make time for all of my girlfriends. I feel like I am, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I feel like I'm a really good friend because I'm just so intentional about making time for other humans. I make time for people that I care about. I do my absolute best because I care about the human experience above all else. And that's what I think makes me a really good coach as well. I just care about human beings. And I'm so grateful for this life. I'm so grateful for this podcast. I'm so grateful that I got a whole nother year on the planet. We are headed to, when you listen to this podcast, you'll probably be seeing my social media. We are in Hawaii for Christmas this year. It's the first time we've been back. For those of you who don't know, I pretty much grew up in Hawaii. For those of you who did not know that, my parents were in the golf industry and they spent the winters, a couple of months every winter when I was growing up. Since I was like 2 years old, we've been spending it in Hawaii, but we have not been back since 2017. And this year we are going back to spend Christmas with my parents and my 2 brothers. I don't talk about all of that stuff very often online, but we are going and it's going to be great. We're spending a few days in Maui, a few days on the Big Island. It's going to be lovely and awesome and hot, which, if you know me, one of my favorite songs of all time is Kenny Chesney, All I Want for Christmas is a Really Good Tan, because that is the only thing I care about. I do not like winter white Christmas. Side note, another thing I was talking about my clients this weekend, personal note, I do not decorate. I know, the travesty. You're like, who are you? But I have never decorated my house. I put a wreath on my door a few years, but now I don't even fucking do that. So call me the Grinch, whatever you want, but we've never really spent a Christmas in our home. But you guys, I am so unbelievably grateful for you. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you tune into this podcast, that you share this podcast with a friend. And you guys, next week, we're going to have the 2024 podcast, the start of the year, New Year's resolution podcast. You're going to want to listen to that one because I promise you, I will not hold back on that. For those of you who have been curious, I do not know if I have a coaching spot available, but I will always tell you, I will always do those complimentary clarity calls. If there is someone, if it's you or someone that you know that is looking for what could possibly be the one mindset or strategy thing holding you back from deciding it's your turn and living a life that you are so in alignment with, if any of this comes true for you, or if any of this feels true, not comes true, but feels true to you, I am always open to doing those calls. I love what I get to do. I do believe that I am the absolute best at it. I am one of very few that do what I do. And I do believe it's a calling on my life. And so I'll be doing it all of 2024. And so if you're interested in any of that, all you have to do is send me a message, book a clarity call, send me a text message, 501-222-3362. And before we end, because I know a few of you are about to turn this off, I'm going to go through, last but not least, those 8 lessons again, in case you missed them in the beginning. And I hope that my personal and professional look back of 2023 gives you some clarity on why these lessons are so, so true this past year. Number 1, trust your gut, trust yourself. You know, it's inside of you. That's why I think coaching is so good, because I don't give it to you. It's already in you. I just help you learn to confidently trust that. Number 2, if you love what you're doing, you 100% can figure out how to make it your job and how to make money doing it. I believe that is possible. It may take time. It will not happen overnight, contrary to what everyone is trying to sell you. but it's totally possible. I would have never have believed in my wildest dreams I could do what I love to do and get paid so well to do it. It's such a gift, and I'm so grateful for it. Number 3, you will never regret spending time with humans that you love. Number 4, money does not make you happy or fulfilled. Money does not make you happy or fulfilled. You can be happy and fulfilled without money. What money does is it gives you the power to make a choice. Number 5, relationships are so important, and your reputation is everything. Do not give away your reputation at any moment in time. Do not do that, because it will come back to bite you in the fucking ass every single time. Number 6, expect an unexpected blessing. At any moment in time, you can decide it's your turn. At any moment in time, life can just happen. At any moment in time, some amazing thing can happen, and some not so amazing things can happen, but expect an unexpected blessing. Number 7, do not wait. Do not wait. Do not wait. Do not wait. Can I say that again? Do not wait. Life is now. Do not wait. And number 8, the tiniest shifts can make the biggest difference. You guys, I am so unbelievably grateful I get to do this each and every single week. I hope you have a wonderful new year. If you're listening to this in real time, I hope your Christmas was amazing, and I will see you next week.